brings up a different conversation. Are you a hard worker? Having a balanced life is a luxury, and that's what you find people doing. I gotta go to the gym at this time, I gotta eat at this time, I gotta do this, I gotta do. You haven't earned the luxury for all that yet. Get up and work. That's it. Not all the other, get up and work. All that other, I gotta do this. You don't deserve that. You didn't work for that. Go to the gym. All the other things that you put in front of your goal doesn't make sense. If you really want to achieve this goal, get up and work. Because this tends to happen. When you make $50,000 a year, there's a lot of people that like you. You make $100,000 a year, you gain new friends. Friends that are also making $100,000 a year. As long as y'all both making $100,000 a year, they like you. You start making $250,000, they don't like you so much anymore. So on and so forth. But the ones who are really rooting for you, the ones that are really your friends, they're gonna like you at every level. The ones who don't have a limiting belief attached to your relationship, they're gonna like you at every level. And if you don't have a limiting belief attached to your potential, chances are you'll like yourself at every level. And that's really what we all should be going for. And thoughts that you dwell on help you to understand why your life is where it is. And if you look back at your life, it's like, yo, I used to think this, I used to think about the things you were thinking about 10 years ago. It's probably what created your present. What's serious about this? The only reason why it feels serious is because people take it seriously. What does it mean to be canceled? For a bunch of people you don't know to start acting like they don't know you. Ultimately, the objective is to be yourself and understand what environment is for you and which one isn't. Doesn't mean that you won't have to play this game, because even if you're around a bunch of men, you still gotta play that game. It's not always about being around women and feeling as if you're somehow a predator because you're around women. You don't build on failure. Negative self-talk doesn't help you in most instances, because even when it looks like it is helping you, it puts you in position to see the world through survival and not actually through what the possibilities really could be, all of it. When you see the world abundantly, then you can jump from 1 to 10. When you see the world through scarcity, you're just trying to get to the next step. You don't see from 1 to 10, you see from 1 to 1.5, 1 to 2.
How do you balance between keeping it real with yourself but positive self-talk?
Keeping it real with yourself is positive self-talk if you don't overdo it. See the situation as it is, but not worse than what it is. And don't belittle what you're doing. Don't say I'm a big fish in a small pond. I'm not a shark in an ocean. Because those things minimize what you're doing. We know that if you're in the pond, you're in the pond. Sharks don't swim in the pond. But acknowledge the success in this space. Because you can only build on success. You don't build on failure. Negative self-talk doesn't help you in most instances. Because even when it looks like it is helping you, it puts you in position to see the world through survival and not actually through what the possibilities really could be. All of it. When you see the world abundantly, then you can jump from 1 to 10. When you see the world through scarcity, you're just trying to get to the next step. You don't see from 1 to 10. You see from 1 to 1.5, 1 to 2. Be honest with yourself, yes. Don't see the situation worse than what it is, and don't belittle the success that you've achieved.
You said success builds on itself.
You can only build on success. You can only build from success.
What would be for someone to not get a false illusion of confidence, but have them do something so they can have like their first actual step towards a better life?
One more time.
What is something that someone can do in a relatively short time to get more confidence and get a small like taste of like success?
Set the game up so that they can win. Try something that gives you immediate results, or look at it in a way that gives you immediate results. For example, if you want to lose weight and you want to do it by going to the gym, you can say, I want to lose 20 pounds. And now you have to wait until you start losing weight to feel as if you're gaining some momentum and build confidence based on that momentum. Or you can say, I'm going to go to the gym 4 times a week, every week, until I lose 20 pounds. Now, every time you go to the gym, you can celebrate. Because every time you go to the gym counts toward that 4 times a week until you reach 20 pounds. And you haven't put a time frame on it. You didn't say, I need to lose 20 pounds by this date, because that adds stress. Typically, just moving in the direction gives you confidence. For example, someone comes into the gym, they're overweight. They look at their personal trainer, they say, one day I want to look like you. I want my stomach to look like yours. The personal trainer has a 6-pack. Seldom does the actual trainee stay long enough to get the 6-pack. But for the ones who do stay, seldom do they get the 6-pack. Why? Because they get to a point where their stomach is flat, and because they remember when their stomach was not flat, they're so happy about their progress that they completely forget about the 6-pack. Now a flat stomach will do. Right? So you can gain some momentum. You just have to be a little bit more specific about what you want and set the game up in a way where you can win. Meaning shift your perspective. And how many ways can you be successful? It's not just one. Right? It's not just a goal, but it's all of the micro goals that, if attained or achieved, allow you to actually hit that bigger goal. Celebrate all of it. Celebrate every step there. Celebrate every decision that supports you actually achieving that goal, not just achieving the goal itself. That's all.
Men and women on the work floor.
Men and women on the work floor.
How to not come across as misogynistic by avoiding working with them. Still being a masculine frame. So not shying away, not acting like a wuss. No, not a wuss, but like overtly submissive to not offend nobody. But then also not giving any sort of insinuation that you might be interested in a sexual encounter. How do you juggle these three?
That really depends on the person. Again, because with some people, some men, just their presence alone is intimidating to some women. They don't have to speak at all. Just their presence alone is intimidating. Every woman doesn't value masculinity. So the more masculine your presence is, the more repulsive you become. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to even be standing next to her. You don't have to acknowledge her at all. But your energy distracts her. Some men, they're tall, they're large, they have a deep voice, big booming voice. They have a strong presence. They have an opinion that they're not afraid to share. They're not overly agreeable. That rubs some people the wrong way. Doesn't mean that they're rude. Doesn't mean that they're disrespectful. But just that presence may make a person who has more of a submissive nature feel dominated. And because they feel dominated, you're a problem. Even if you're not doing anything but being yourself. And you're respectful. And all those things that you're supposed to be in the workspace. So that's a slippery slope. Because it changes based on every person you encounter. To this person, your masculinity may be appreciated. To the next person, they're kind of neutral. To the next person, it's repulsive. So now the question is, are you going to wear a different face for each one of those people? Maybe you will, to some extent, if you are interacting with them independently. But what happens when you have all of those people on your team? And you're in a meeting with all of these people at one time. How do you communicate your message to everyone effectively without them feeling a way about what you said or how you said it? Ultimately, the objective is to be yourself and understand what environment is for you and which one isn't. Doesn't mean that you won't have to play this game. Because even if you're around a bunch of men, you still got to play that game. It's not always about being around women and feeling as if you're somehow a predator because you're around women. You can be around a bunch of men and it's still the same experience, right? You don't communicate with all men in the same way. You don't communicate with different people in different organizations at different levels of that organization in the same way. Right? You don't communicate with the board team, the board members the same way that you communicate with the sales team. So this is an example of why it's important to be interpersonal, to have interpersonal skills, to build those interpersonal skills. How do you build them? You build them through experience. You build them through putting yourself in different environments, interacting with different people, taking courses, reading books, going back out there into different environments, interacting with different people, learning from that situation. And the more you do it, the better at it you become. But there isn't a one-size-fits-all on either side. There's not a one-size-fits-all for the person that's trying to become better at this. And it's not a one-size-fits-all to the person who that person is speaking to. Because everybody that person speaks to is different. And then again, it's all circumstantial. You could speak to the same person in different instances and not be able to be the same person in each one of those instances. You have to communicate with these people differently, even though it's the same person. Just a different environment, a different circumstance. You could be cool with your boss outside of work if you're an employee. Outside of work, y'all just two people. Y'all kicking it. When you get back to that office, you don't talk to that person the same. You don't interact with that person in the same way. And a lot of people have trouble with that because they don't know how to put that hat on and off, the employee hat versus the friend hat. They don't know how to do that. Right? So it's not just a man and woman thing. It's in general. Although I understand the concept of man and woman, perhaps that added another level of complexity. But it was already there. It was already there. Maybe not at that level. The workspace was already a complex environment. So that's something that we have to deal with on a case-by-case basis. But ultimately, be yourself. Don't find yourself trying to be someone else in each one of these situations, because then you lose yourself. And when you lose yourself, you lose respect. Because then there's no integrity in what it is that you're doing. At least if you're a person that people don't like, they can still respect you even though they don't like you. But when you're a different person all the time, that's the fastest way to not being liked. And also the fastest way to being someone that people don't respect. I would say focus on being respected more than you focus on being liked.
Because there seems to be a lot of complex, not so complex issues nowadays, especially with like feminism.
That's a good way to say it.
Intersectional feminism.
Intersection feminism.
Yeah.
What is that?
Very specific. Like it's not about like women. It's about trans women as well. It's about handicapped women. It's like a very black women. It's like everything's like very divided. But it's not divided. It's like all inclusive. And some people are kind of like iffy about like, is it all inclusive or are we just bringing things in that are not really in it? And these are certain issues where I'm like, in this day and age, is it really that important? I'm talking about like Gen Z, to have an opinion about these things. Because it almost feels like if you in a position and you have no opinion on these things, you're kind of vulnerable.
I guess for me it would be, why would you not have an opinion? About something that affects your life so readily.
How does it affect my life?
Because you're interacting with these types of people who want you to consider them how they want you to consider them. And if you are not comfortable with that consideration, then you become a potential problem.
And what if your opinion is not necessarily one that aligns with them?
I don't think the goal is for your opinion to align with anyone's. The goal is for your opinion to be how you really see things, and not based on how other people see things or how other people want you to see things.
Can you do that without losing what you've built, getting canceled, for instance? Or nah, man, these are serious. I know they might not sound too serious, but
what's serious about this? The only reason why I feel serious is because people take it seriously. What does it mean to be canceled? For a bunch of people you don't know to start acting like they don't know you. Is that being canceled? So now you actually have to live your life based on what's real. Is that being canceled? These fake friends that you have? Or these followers that really don't have any idea as to what direction you're taking your life in, but yet they're quote unquote following you. Is that what being canceled means? People who don't know you, don't really care to get to know you, disliking you because you said something that helped them get to know you better. Because you said something that challenged their perspective. So they don't care to listen to anything you have to say because what you're saying evokes an emotion in them that they're unwilling to address for themselves. Is that what it means to be canceled? If so, why would you not want to be canceled? Why should you not strive to be canceled? If you liking me is based on a facade, why should I care about you liking me? Or acting like you like me? The objective is not just to have an opinion. The objective is to have an informed one that makes sense, which seems to be something that we're lacking today. It used to be a requirement. At one point, if you had something to say, it had to make sense or it would be dismissed. Now, it just has to resonate with someone else who feels the way you feel. Even if they don't really understand what you're saying, they resonate with how sad you were when you said it. They resonate with the idea that everybody's opinion matters. It does matter. Everyone's opinion does matter. But everyone's opinion should not be law. Feelings are feelings. They matter. They come from somewhere. And we should allocate room for those feelings so that we can process them, so that we can understand them, give space to those feelings so that they don't show up in different areas of your life in a way that has negative effects because you didn't address those feelings. But understand that those feelings are not facts. And until we start operating from the space of fact, it's hard to have an informed opinion. And so it's hard for our opinions to be taken seriously beyond a feeling. So why should I be concerned about being canceled? Why should anyone be concerned about being canceled? Because someone can speak well doesn't mean that they're speaking truth. say that because oftentimes when someone is being canceled, they're being canceled by a group of people they're being canceled by a group of people who don't have a convincing argument. They're being canceled by a group of people who articulate their feelings well, even though their feelings may not actually be based on fact. And again, we resonate with the feeling, not what's actually being said. Also, having hurt feelings is a part of life. Oftentimes, a person's feelings being hurt is actually the breakthrough that they need to see the type of progress that they want to see in their lives. I'm not saying that the objective should be to hurt someone's feelings. I'm not saying that should be the aim. I'm not saying that should be your intention, to hurt someone's feelings. The intention should be to inform yourself as much as possible, to understand yourself as much as possible, and to develop a perspective that represents truth, despite how you feel about it. And ask yourself, is there something wrong with the situation? Or is there something that I need to change about my beliefs? Because outside of this feeling, there's actually nothing wrong with this situation. This situation is factual. This situation is supported by natural law. Even though it doesn't resonate with me emotionally. So perhaps it's not the situation, it's my belief. And now the inner work begins. Because oftentimes that's what it seems to be. The people who are canceling people, in some instances it's fair. But in a lot of instances, perhaps it's because that person is confronting society with an opportunity for society to address themselves or address itself. And society doesn't want to do that. Because growth doesn't always feel good. And society wants to feel good. Because we have adopted the concept, or seemingly adopted the concept, where if we feel good, we are good. When that's not necessarily true. Just because you feel good doesn't mean that you're doing well. And just because you feel badly doesn't mean that you're feeling badly. Again, the process is, who are you being? That's what's going to determine what you're going to do. What you do is what determines what you will have in your life. So, am I good? That's what determines if I go and I perform good deeds, which determines what I will have, including a feeling. Do I have feelings of joy? Do I have feelings of significance, love, certainty, growth, progress, self-actualization, beauty, abundance? Or am I constantly coming from a place of lack? And because I know I'm coming from a place of lack, chances are you know it too. And I'm afraid for you to expose that. So I have to cancel you. Yeah, Jay-Z. Jay-Z, I didn't like Jay-Z so much when I was younger. Like, in my early teens. Because he didn't talk about the struggle enough to me. I was very into rappers that was talking about the struggle. Jay-Z was all about money, so it seemed. And, you know, his flow was always like styling on you. And that was kind of corny to me. But bro, talk about life. And now I realize, like, all the people who were talking about the things that I was interested in at that time, life and the struggle, throughout the years, they've been associated with more struggle. Meanwhile, Jay-Z has been associated with more growth. When I look at Jay's life and I look at their lives, it's a big difference from what we can see from the outside, of course. I don't know what their actual lives are like, of course. But from what we can see, Jay spoke what he wanted into existence and focused on the aspects of his life that he was actually experiencing at that time, that would lead to more growth. His music wasn't reductive. It was about, yo, I'm getting this money, I will not lose. The Rock forever, the dynasty, we shining, we number one, we gonna stay number one, we gonna keep going up, I got the baddest in the game, I got this, and it just kept being more of that. It kept becoming more of that. The artists that were talking about the struggle, consistently, it kept being more of that. It was like a glass ceiling for them. They got to a certain point, but they didn't get beyond it. Because to go beyond that glass ceiling is to achieve abundance. They maxed out on what they can do from a struggle perspective. Whatever it is that the struggle could give them, they maxed out on it. And they never quite got past that point. Meanwhile, Jay is to the moon. So, just goes to show you how the thoughts you dwell on create your future reality. Be careful of the thoughts that you dwell on.
What can you learn from the thoughts that you dwell on, though? Once you recognize what you do.
Why your life is where it is. The thoughts that you dwell on help you to understand why your life is where it is. And if you look back at your life, it's like, yo, I used to think this, I used to think. Think about the things you were thinking about 10 years ago. It's probably what created your present.
Something that can be very taxing on the brain is trying to guide it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Guiding your thoughts is very necessary. It's either you control your thoughts or the world will, meaning someone else will. And for some people, it's very easy to follow other people. If you give them instruction, they can follow it to a T. But if you tell them nothing, they don't know what to do. That's an employee. Be real with yourself. Are you an employee? Are you a leader? Do you have a vision? Can you get people to buy into that vision? Are you bought into that vision?
What if you're like naturally an employee? Is there still hope of you becoming a leader? Or should you play into your role of who you are?
People who are natural employees can be employees and have a leadership position. CEOs are not necessarily the founder of the organization. That's a job. A CEO is an employee. They're not entrepreneurs, necessarily. They're high-level employees. So you can be a leader and be an employee. The manager at McDonald's is a leader. He doesn't own McDonald's. Chances are. He doesn't own that franchise. Chances are. But he's a leader. She's a leader. But still an employee. So a person can be an employee and still be a leader. And there's nothing wrong with being an employee. Now, does that mean that entrepreneurs cannot be built? No. Entrepreneurs can definitely be built. You don't have to be born an entrepreneur. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur to be a leader. You can be an employee and be a leader. And you can be an entrepreneur even though you weren't a born entrepreneur. Typically a born entrepreneur does something new. They do something differently, like something that hasn't been done before. At least not in the capacity that they're doing it. While someone who becomes an entrepreneur, meaning someone who's an entrepreneur that was built, is someone who does something that's been done before better, or in a different region where it doesn't currently exist. That's what history has shown us. Perhaps it'll be different moving forward, because it's just harder to be different now. Because everybody's copying each other. Even if you are different, you won't be different for very long. So perhaps in the future it'll be harder to see this. What could be different is your brand, or the strength of your brand. That's what could be or will be the distinguishing factor.
What do you think of people that are so adamant about like hustle culture and the new wave of calling it out as toxic?
I think too much of anything is toxic. So there may be some legitimacy to that. But it depends on the person. It's all about what works for you. It's not about everybody else. Right? All Alex Hormozy can do is come online and tell you what he did. What worked for him. Yeah, he can tell you all the things that he studied and what worked for other people, but he doesn't know their story as intimately as he knows his own. So the best advice he can give you is based on his own experience. And if he's someone that sold everything, moved to a different city where he didn't know anybody, spent all his money buying this facility that he wanted to build out, slept on the floor of that facility every night, where it was just his sleeping bag and his laptop, and he built that company from nothing, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That was his approach. That's his mindset, all or nothing. But his definition of all may be different from someone else's definition of all. Someone else may feel like that's too scary to do. So they ease their way into the success that he's seen. They take a different route. They're not wrong for doing that. Some people never do that. They're not wrong for not doing that at all. They're not wrong for saying, I want the simple life. What does that mean? I want to make I want to make $80,000 a year in a small town, digitally. So I don't have to get up and go to work every day at somebody's physical office. I can make my own hours. And this is what I want for my life. It costs me $23,000 to live per year. I put the rest into an investment account, whichever investment account of their choice, based on their own personal discretion. And, that's what they see for the next 30 years of their lives. Chances are they'll have to pivot, but they're not wrong for having that idea. So,
for some people, all that like sleeping on the floor, like crazy hustling, can create like trauma in their life.
okay.
Is that something that people should be worried about?
Trauma can come from anywhere. Should people be worried about it? I'm not sure if I'd say worried about it. People should be conscious that trauma can come from anywhere. Some people are traumatized by how powerful they are. It sounds weird to say that. It sounds like a poor selection of words, but that's really how they experience it. They do something great, they get a lot of praise for it, they get a lot of recognition for it. It actually makes the world a better place, chances are, at least makes their world a better place. The people that they impact directly, it makes their world a better place. And they hate it. There's some people, and they don't have anything to trace that back to. Right? It's not because of this thing that happened when they were a child that they never addressed, and etc. It's just not who they are. They don't care for all of the praise and etc. So, what is trauma? Like essentially, what is it? Is it you have an experience and you have a negative association with that experience on a subconscious level? Because if so, that can come from anywhere. And when I say anywhere, I mean from any decision that you make. Because all you can control is the decision. What happens after you make that decision, you don't control that. At least not directly. And definitely not right away. You can make a decision that you believe to be positive and believe to be helpful. Something that you believe is going to have a positive ROI on your future. And maybe it will. But perhaps you won't begin to see that positive ROI on your future right away. Maybe at first it brings about some things that are not so, or at least don't feel so positive. So, trauma can come from anywhere.
What are some healthy routines that are morning routines that people can take, implement?
Depends on person. Depending on what you want to accomplish. It's different with different people. Some people should sleep in. Some people are not getting enough rest. A lot of people actually could focus on having a better nighttime routine, because that's what sets you up for the next day. Do you know what your day is going to consist of tomorrow from a goal perspective?
Why from a goal perspective and not from a to-do list perspective?
Because to-do list is typically just a list of activities. It's not goal-oriented. If you focus on a goal, chances are you can get there in less steps. So, especially when you include other people, they know about what the goal, they know about what the goal is, and less about what this thing is that you want to do, less about the activity. Perhaps that can propel you to the goal much faster, and then you're actually making progress. A lot of times people are doing things that's not actually moving the needle. You want to move the needle. If you want to wake up early, it's not really about what time you wake up. It's about what time you go to bed. If you want to feel rested, it's not how long you sleep. It's probably how much time was in between your last meal and when you went to sleep. So that when you sleep, your body's actually working on replenishing itself instead of working on breaking your food down. So oftentimes it's just not knowing, not being clear on what you want to do, and not knowing enough about how to get there. For example, a lot of people have goals. We talk a lot about what we want to do, but are we prepared for it? Do you plan in time to prepare yourself for the goal and not just say, I have this goal, I'm going to start working toward this goal? Are you prepared for that goal? Tomorrow I want to go to the gym. You know what you're wearing to the gym? You got everything ready already? You just got to come home, 1, 2, 3, and you headed to the gym. Chances are the answer to that question is no. I want to focus on a healthy diet. Is your meal prep for the week? Not for the day. Did you pack lunch day? Did you meal prep for the week? Because something is going to go wrong this week, chances are. That's going to make it so you don't eat at the time that you want to eat. And you don't eat the thing that you want to eat because that thing, meaning that macro, may not be available to you in that moment. So if you leave it to chance and just prepare the next meal, how likely are you to actually hit your goal? Not very likely. And the reason you're not very likely is because you're not prepared for the goal.
Trying to really understand the difference between like the day before, like what's the difference between like a goal and an activity. My goal is to get something done. Then that's the activity, right? Do it.
The only goal is what you're going to get out of getting that done. I could say, make 10 calls tomorrow. That can be the goal, but like, what am I going for? Why am I making 10 calls? I'm making 10 calls because in sales, typically the percentage is for every 10 calls you make one sale. Okay, that's why you want to make 10 calls. So is the goal really make 10 calls, or is the goal to make one sale? The goal is to make one sale. Very different outlook. It changes the way your brain processes information so that it can get you to the goal much faster. Because your brain is going to take the process that provides a path of least resistance. So if you're just thinking about things to do, that's you consciously trying to dictate the path. But your conscious mind is not it's not even a comparison. And between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind, and which one is smarter? Which one is more efficient? Your subconscious mind is way, way, way more efficient than your conscious mind. So you trying to dictate what should happen based on steps makes less sense than saying, this is my goal, and allowing your mind, your subconscious mind, to process that goal. And allowing your conscious mind to execute that process.
How does that work then when people say, don't focus on the outcome, detach from the outcome, and focus on the process and the necessary habits?
Then the goal is the habit. The goal is having these habits become second nature so that you don't think about them anymore, so that they're consistent with your identity. Like waking up and training is a goal. Why do I want to wake up and train? You answer that question, okay? I want to wake up and train because I want to lose weight. I want to wake up and train because I want to focus on consistency. I want to wake up and train because fill in the blank. But in some situations, the goal is to do the thing. And in other situations, the goal is to acquire a positive consequence from doing the thing. Because in some situations, having a goal is great. But if you haven't become the person to acquire that goal, you won't have it. You won't have it. You won't actually hit the goal. If you haven't become the person who adopts certain habits that aligns you with that goal, the chances of you actually achieving it are slimmer, because it's going to be harder for you to acquire it because you don't have the habits of a person who acquires that level of success. probably because your identity is inconsistent with that thing you're saying that you want to have. For example, there are people who, they're likable people, but they don't have a lot of friends. And it's like, why? Why does it make sense for a person who's likable not to have a lot of friends? Because they're not performing at a level that is consistent with their identity. And they know that. Which is why oftentimes they may find themselves feeling uneasy. Because it's something that they should be doing that they're not doing that's actually consistent with who they are. But they don't do it because they have some limiting belief that they're defending. And because of that, they actually have a group of friends that's waiting for them. But that group of friends engages in certain activities that this person doesn't want to engage in yet, so they don't actually meet that group of friends. And then there's another group of friends who engage in activities that this person doesn't like, so they don't really hang out with those people either. So they're kind of just in this middle phase where they meet a lot of people. A lot of people can say they know them, but they don't actually connect with a lot of people. Because the way that they live their lives is inconsistent with their identity. And for as long as how they live their lives is inconsistent with their identity, it's harder for them to connect with people who have an identity that is aligned with their actions. So they end up just floating. They end up having a lot of people that they know a lot of, but it never quite sticks. And if it does, it doesn't stick long term.
How can someone breach that gap between losing that inconsistency? You get what I'm saying?
No.
That gap between who they really are and them not executing due to limiting beliefs.
Figure out what that limiting belief is and stop defending it. It's okay to have limiting beliefs. Partially because a lot of times those limiting beliefs were given to you by your community from the old environment. So if you're defending that, that's the issue. The issue is not having it because you acquired it before you knew how to reject it in a lot of instances. But now that you have a goal, you understand that this is actually not consistent with your goal, and that goal is consistent with your identity, try something new. Adopt a new belief. Because typically it's not just a matter of saying, I don't believe this anymore, and moving on. You have to replace it. Because then it's just idle space in your mind. Idle space in your mind leans toward the negative. So you have to replace it with something positive and then constantly reinforce it until it's actually a belief and not a thought.
Can you give an example?
Absolutely. If you identify as a manager at your organization, but you have a limiting belief of, if I'm too smart or if I'm too capable, people are not going to like me. Because when you were younger, you were told, just be normal. Don't try to stand out from the crowd. People don't like the oddball. Success is for those people. It's not for you. For you, success would be a problem. Just be normal. So, and when you try to step out and be successful, when you were really intelligent and you was in the front of the class raising your hand, all the people who were cool labeled you as a nerd. And they rejected you because of that. So now you're in a space as an adult where being intelligent is actually rewarded. And you're actually the more intelligent person in the room. Not only about whatever the discipline is, but you're also a likable person. You can influence people. People like you. People will follow you, and you know that it's true because they follow you now. You're not even a manager. Even a manager comes to you and asks you for questions, asks you for answers that you should probably be looking to them for. So even a person in a leadership position has been grooming you to lead. But you don't want to step into this vacancy that's available at your organization because you feel like success is going to be demonized when it comes to you. So you don't do it, even though you're overqualified. Meaning, all you have to do is, you probably wouldn't even have to interview for the position. Just tell someone that you're interested in it. And in their mind, you already got the job because they know that you're the perfect candidate. And what I mean by you not having to interview doesn't mean that you won't actually have to interview. It's a process. Right? It's a formality for you to interview. With the person in their mind, you're already hired. So you would really have to go into that interview and just completely bomb it. You would have to go into that interview and be someone that they don't know in order for you to lose that opportunity. If you go into that interview and just be yourself, the same person that they know you to be every day when they see you at work every day, it's a no-brainer you will get that job. But because you have this limiting belief that success is not for you, and if you were to actually step into that position, people would dislike you and demonize your success, you don't try it. Yeah, as an employee, as someone who's on the same level as everybody else, they love you. But the moment you step up, they're not going to like you so much. And because you fear that, because you value partnership, or you value your relationships, rather, to a detriment, actually, you don't want to take on that position. Unlimited belief. Someone who doesn't have a limited belief is someone who says, I like being at this position with all of these people. I'm happy that we were able to really establish a friendship, or at least establish some great memories over these past 2 years or however long you've been working with them. But now it's time for you to move on. You see a great opportunity that's perfect for you. You're going to take it. And the people who weren't your friends are going to show that they're not your friends when you get into this position. So it's probably best that you take this position so you can know who your friends really are. Not to say that these people, there's something wrong with these people. Perhaps they also have a limiting belief that when you get into this position, somehow that makes you better than them or different than you were before, therefore creating a gap between you and them and causing you to drift away from each other, when none of that has to be true. Because this tends to happen. When you're making $50,000 a year, there's a lot of people that like you. You make $100,000 a year, some of those people don't like you anymore. You gain new friends. Friends that are also making $100,000 a year. As long as y'all both making $100,000 a year, they like you. You start making $250,000, they don't like you so much anymore. So on and so forth. But the ones who are really rooting for you, the ones that are really your friends, they're gonna like you at every level. The ones who don't have a limiting belief attached to your relationship, they're going to like you at every level. And if you don't have a limiting belief attached to your potential, chances are you'll like yourself at every level. And that's really what we all should be going for.
So just to summarize what we just said, is like, in order to breach the gap between limiting belief, to overbridge the limiting belief is really just action.
To bridge the gap. Say it again.
So what we said just earlier, you said like people that have a hard time making friends because there's a gap between who they are and how they present themselves in the world. Oh, what did you say again?
I said that there are people who don't have friends because their actions are not aligned with their identity. And their identity is not aligned with their action because they're defending a limiting belief.
And so to bridge that, or to overcome that.
To overcome that is to address that limiting belief and stop defending it. Right? Find what that limiting belief is, stop defending it, try something new, put yourself in a different environment, read a book, have a conversation with someone that you normally wouldn't have a conversation with, and replace that limiting belief, or start working toward replacing that limiting belief with another belief that actually serves you, so that you can behave in a way that's consistent with your identity, so that you can achieve your standards with less friction, meaning less resistance.
What does that look like, replacing your limiting belief with one that actually serves you?
What do you mean what it looks like?
That new belief, is that something that is true? Or that's something that if you believe in it, it'll become true?
The latter. It's kind of saying the same thing though. Is it true? Or is it something that if you believe it, it will become true? For your life, it's what you believe. What do you believe you can be? For example, given what's real, like the actual circumstances. And that's the part that's truth. Given the actual circumstances, what can you be? What can you be is what you believe. And that belief begins to affect your perspective. So in other words, how do you perceive the truth? For example, you got fired from your job. The truth is you got fired from your job. Whether that's a negative thing or a positive thing is based on what you believe. The fact is you got fired from your job. That's the truth. What you believe is it's a positive thing that I got fired from my job. Now I can actually go do the thing that I want to do. I didn't really want to do this. I felt like I had to do this because I was trying to please my parent, for example. Never really wanted to be a lawyer, even though I went throughout law school, I passed the bar exam, I became a lawyer, been a lawyer at this firm for the past 5 years. In the beginning, I was really good at fronting. I was good at pretending. I was good at making it seem like I wanted to be here because I actually did want to be there, but not for the right reasons. I wanted to be there to please my parents. I was happy to achieve the goal of landing an opportunity at a law firm so that my parents can be pleased. And my happiness attached to achieving that goal was mistaken for happiness attached to becoming a lawyer. I just really wanted to please my parents. And regardless to what it is that they wanted me to do, I would have done it, whether it was law or being a chef. I would have done it. Now that I've checked that box off of pleasing my parents, I want to please myself. And this is confirmation that trying to please myself or aiming to please myself is what I should be going for. Because if I were to actually stay here, or if I was supposed to stay here, I wouldn't have gotten fired. So I see this as a positive thing. And because you believe that, now you see other opportunities to do the thing you actually want to do. If you believe it to be a negative thing, maybe you be blaming yourself for being fired in a way that doesn't serve you. And because you believe that you're a failure if you're not a lawyer, now you're looking for another law position, even though you never wanted to be a lawyer. You wanted to please your parent. That's an example.
At what point should you, as a young adolescent, start to look more at what you want to do instead of what your parents want you to do? Or should it be just like the base start?
It's different for everyone. There's not an age. Chances are you're not even an adolescent when you realize it. You don't have enough experience as an adolescent oftentimes to realize that. And you don't really know the opportunities that are available to you as an adolescent a lot of the times. Sometimes it feels like it's something that your parents want for you. It's really something you want for yourself, but you don't even have enough context of who you are in relation to the world to know that this is something you want. So there's no set age to stop trying to please your parent and start focusing on yourself. That happens when it happens. If it happens.
How do you kickstart a project, whatever project, like a art project or something, where you don't have a lot of funds?
By starting what you have. Seeing how much you can do without any money. There's a lot that people can do with no money. Not having money oftentimes helps a person to become resourceful. Having money sometimes keeps a person from being resourceful. So you end up just blowing a lot of money that you didn't really need to spend. Especially as a creative. Because you can use your creativity to save money. So, even if you have money, perhaps it's best to start, or not best, but useful, to to approach every situation, at least initially, as if you don't have money. See what it is that you can do to help propel you towards your goal without money. And then ask yourself, is the amount of time and effort required to achieve that without using this money worth it? And that can help you gauge what to do. But in the beginning, if you don't have the luxury of even having options, right? And it's this has to work or this has to work without money, then you have to be as resourceful as you possibly can, and don't aim for perfection. Right? Aim for progress. And just having it out is progress. Start on the next project, put it out. Start on the next project, put it out. And after a while, you gain some momentum. And that momentum can help you to acquire resources, financial resources, which help you to be more creative, or have another project and do that project better. Why? Because now you have the experience of being resourceful. You understand how to do things without any money better than you did before. But now you actually have a little bit of money. So you can do a pretty good job. Yeah. And then you keep growing like that. But waiting for money is not something that I would advise.
Because oftentimes in this sphere of like creativity, a lot of people, especially back in the day, were like, do you want to fill for me for free? It'll help you get exposure.
Yeah.
But to me, I was like, but if nobody's putting up anything, it won't get no exposure.
Yeah.
You see the paradox?
Yeah. But you start for free. Even though it seems confusing. Because why would someone give a creative without a portfolio of money? They don't have any context for your vision. They don't have any context for your talent. So essentially they're investing in a question mark. It's a gamble. But when someone sees what you can do with no money, then they can see talent and say, okay, maybe this person is worth $100. Well, excuse me, not this person, but their work is worth $100. I'll give you $100. That's $100 you have that you didn't have before. What can you do with that $100? Right? You do 2, 3, 10 videos for $100. Now you got 10 more videos that you can add to your portfolio. Choose the best out of all of them. Create a new portfolio. Now you go to someone else and you charge them, hey, my price is $500. Because you have the experience, you have a bit more money, you've improved your skill set. Stay at $500 for a while. Maybe you do 30 videos at $500. Maybe you do 50 videos at $500. Because the more money you charge, the better the product they expect. Okay, you've done 50 videos at $500, choose the best. Now your rate is $1,000. And again, in the beginning, it's slow. But you do hit an inflection point where you progress exponentially faster. And when that begins to show up in your work, then you can say, my rate is $5,000. My rate is $10,000. then you hit a wall in that profession based on what it is that you're focusing your attention on. And then it's, okay, I'm a pretty good videographer. What else can I document? Maybe you started out doing rap videos. You kind of hit a ceiling there. Okay, there's not a big budget that artists tend to have for rap videos. Cool. Maybe I can do something else now. You pivot. Start doing other things. Maybe it's not movies. That's another thing. Like people who are creatives and they focus on entertainment, it tends to be a very narrow scope that they see things through. Right? And it's old. Like, what, you gonna be a rapper, actor, or basketball player? And it's like somehow the creatives still try to like stay in that space when creativity has expanded so far beyond that now. You can film a fashion show. But people don't think that. They think I'm gonna go from filming this rap video to making a movie, a documentary. Instead of, I can film a reality TV show. I can start filming commercials for Porsche. Wow. There's a lot of things. Porsche doesn't do commercials, as far as I know. But it's an example. It can be, my point is, it can be outside of the sphere of thinking that is common in this environment. Can do different things. Or you can think about the transferable skill set you acquire from being a videographer and apply it to something completely different. But you have to think for that. You have to be okay with pivoting. You have to be okay with starting over. So, being a creative is interesting today. But then again, it's always been interesting. And creatives have found a way to pivot throughout the process. So it comes back to how creative you are, how resourceful you are. What can you do with a minimal amount of money? I think Vin Diesel saved $10,000 and made his first film. He was a bouncer at a club in New York. Scraped up $10,000, made his first movie. From that point on, he built. Some people would say, yeah, but he had 10,000. No, he saved 10,000. Maybe there's a person out there that is not in position to save 10,000, that's fine. Vin Diesel also wasn't in position to save 100,000. And that's what Vin Diesel's 10,000 is to that person who can't save it, is what the 100,000 was to Vin Diesel. Start where you are. Not having something is not an excuse not to do something. Something. You know? Start with what you have. Start with who you know. And build it over time. And be aggressively patient. That means don't rush the outcome, but work diligently toward whatever your goal is every day. But having no money does require people to work harder. And that brings about a different brings up a different conversation. Are you a hard worker? Having a balanced life is a luxury. And that's what you find people doing. I gotta go to the gym at this time. I gotta eat at this time. I gotta do this. I gotta do. You haven't earned the luxury for all that yet. Get up and work. That's it. Not all the other. Get up and work. All that other, I gotta do this. You don't deserve that. You didn't work for that. Go to the gym. All the other things that you put in front of your goal, does it make sense if you really want to achieve this goal? Get up and work. And that doesn't mean just on this goal. That means across your life. What are your goals across your life? Get up and work so that they can feed off of one another and they can grow together. The different aspects of your life can grow together. Not just what you want to do professionally, not just what you want to do physically, meaning with your body. This concept of having to balance your life, one, it's not really real. Two, it's something that you work toward to move and target. That's why I say it's not real, because seldom do people actually catch it. And when you do hit that target, you hit it every now and again. But how likely is it for you to hit it all the time? And also, the only way you learn how to hit that moving target is by working. So, get up and work. You don't have enough leverage to be seeking balance in your life. You don't have enough success in the different aspects of your life to lean on to have a balanced life. Can you pay your rent this month? You should probably try to figure that out before you try to figure out how to do all these other extracurricular activities. Can you feed yourself this month? Before you try to do all these extracurricular activities, figure that part out. Then it's the gym. Once you figure that out, then it's health insurance. Then it's dental insurance. Then it's investments. Then it's etc. Once you have money for all those things, then you can probably start thinking about the club. Some people would argue going to the club, networking, meeting people can help you put yourself in position to acquire the resources needed to fulfill all of those obligations. Indeed, that is true. But going to the club doesn't give you the discipline required to know what to do with that money when you get it. So perhaps you'll get the money, but you won't fulfill those obligations because you haven't established the discipline necessary or required to do so. And we see that a lot. We see a lot of rappers, we see a lot of athletes get money, and from the outside looking in, you think their lives must be completely together. Everything must be in line. Just to learn 10 years later that nothing was enough.